Welcome to Fair Winds and Following Seas, the Unwritten Code of Navigating Increasing Professional Responsibilities. So, just a little housekeeping. This is the Code of Conduct, if you haven't seen it yet, but please treat each other with the respect that you've been treating each other all week long. And so we will have a little bit of time for questions. Please say your name, please use their microphone. You know the drill. And so we will start first.
Hi, y'all. Good morning for 10 minutes. My name is Michelle Colquitt, and I'm the Continuing Resources and Government Information Management Librarian at Clemson University Libraries. I've been there since September of 2021. I was the interim e-resources coordinator from January of 24 until April of 25 when we hired our wonderful and awesome e-collections and access person, Joni Addis, who is amazing. So I am also a career changer. I love to tell people this. I was a juvenile probation officer for 10 and a half years, and I became a librarian. I didn't just wake up and say, I love to read and I want to become a librarian. It was very intentional. I had worked as a student worker and I loved working in libraries. I am also a career changer in libraries. I worked as a staff member, a library associate, where I had to teach classes, and God bless y'all that do that. That is not my jam. And then I went to work at a state college as a resource management librarian, and now I'm on the tenure track as continuing resources and government information management. My team is responsible for serials and GovDocs, acquisitions, and cataloging, and I am also an extreme introvert and a reluctant joiner. I have joined NASIG, and it is the most amazing thing ever. So.
Right, and I'm Jen Zaccaro, currently the head of acquisitions and cataloging at Syracuse University Libraries, which is the most recent step in the path, as I have decided more responsibility is more fun. I started at West Virginia State University, which is a tiny HBCU just outside of Charleston, West Virginia, where we had a staff of 10 and an FTE of approximately 1,200. So it was a great experience for learning a little of everything in a library, but did not have the capacity to provide support or experiences if you had any interest in increasing responsibility or going forward in your career. So I was lucky enough to end up at Syracuse University, which is not the same. At all. We have a staff of like 150, an FTE of 20,000, which provided a lot of ability for support and opportunities to move forward. And like I said, most recently, I've been the head of acquisitions and cataloging, but still getting the opportunity to continue to be the lead librarian for acquisitions until we can fill that position. So why do one when you can do two?
Hi, my name is Kayla Whitehead. I'm currently the electronic resources librarian at Tulane University. I've worked in libraries, academic libraries, for over 20 years now. So I would say I have a progressive experience. I feel like I really got in on the ground floor. I was a serials assistant in 2008, and that was when we really started canceling those print subscriptions and getting all electronic subscriptions instead. So I kind of grew into an e-resources role. I was also a little bit later to librarianship. I didn't go to library school until like 2016, and I was working full-time while I was doing that. In an e-resources role already. So my first professional position is as e-resources librarian and a new manager as well was in 2019. So again, I'm currently the electronic resources librarian at Tulane University. I manage a really talented team of, I have 3 direct reports, and we manage, hundreds of journals and databases, and we have a lot to do, but we're really excited about our work. So this is relevant to our presentation, I promise. I wanted to talk a little bit about how we met and so how this presentation came to be. So the 3 of us met through the NASIG organization, and I invited Michelle and Jennifer to be part of a peer mentoring program I piloted last spring. So a little bit about that. Okay, never mind. All right. So a fellow NASIG board member and I, Matt Chabali, we're talking at the 2024 NASIG conference about the need for mentoring and creating community. And we decided to start a peer mentoring program. It was small. It was aimed at mid-career folks. We asked people we already knew a little bit to meet us once a month to discuss any issues we were having at work and with our careers. It was a really fun and helpful conversation. We had a blast, I think. So through that program, we discovered we had a lot in common. We were either taking on brand new roles or taking on extra responsibilities on top of our current role. So part of what brought us together were the shared challenges and seeking support. And this presentation was born. So now we'll hear a little bit more from Jennifer.
Okay, so kind of looking at things, I don't think when we're talking, we don't know anybody who hasn't felt the pressure or overwhelm of increasing responsibility, and if you're one of those people who doesn't, you'll have to teach the rest of us your ways. Feeling like you've been doing more than one job or you're actually doing more than one job, no matter how it gets there, whether it has been planned and you're looking for increased responsibility or looking to progress in your career, if you're working towards tenure, looking for career advancement, or really just one of those people who kind of like gather tasks. You see something that's not being done and nobody else is willing to do it, so you just kind of put it in your basket and you're like, it's fine. And then until all of a sudden you wake up and you realize you have way too much to do, which may or may not happen to me on a regular basis. So no matter how you have gotten these responsibilities, I think kind of trying to figure out and right-size them is incredibly important. And one of the ways in which, like, if you can plan for it, that's the best way. At least for us, we were figuring that it was the best way to kind of go forward. And unfortunately, one of the ways that to get there, I think, is, like many situations, having conversations, having to talk to people, and specifically like a supervisor to explain your interests if you're looking for promotion or career growth, and get new things and seek new opportunities and see how they can go and align with your career and how you're better, and so you can get better matched with these activities. I think, or just if you're not looking for that and you're just a collector of things, to have conversations about the new tasks that you're taking on by choice or necessity, and talking about how they either can fit or what you can put aside and maybe not prioritize. Especially if the current responsibilities will be time limited, or a specific project. You know, when we migrated to Alma, so many of us had to take on new and extra tasks and then kind of put aside some of the projects we had been working on, and identifying what those were required a larger conversation and figuring out from the libraries what we could deprioritize. If nothing else can be put aside, because it turns out there's some things that just can't be stopped, talking about setting expectations, what things are going to take longer. In my current position, I have had a lot of conversations with colleagues about acquisitions and what things may not be getting done as quickly as they were getting done when I was doing one job versus two. And then another piece is taking stock of the responsibilities. I love a list. Love a list in all aspects, what I'm doing for the day or what I'm doing throughout all things. So kind of as I go throughout the year, I start making lists of what all of the tasks and all of the responsibilities that I have gathered throughout the year. We have to do yearly reviews, so taking that opportunity to kind of look at what I have and what aligns with the role and what aligns with my goals for the next year, and working with my supervisor to see what I can still be doing and what we're doing just kind of out of habit and what doesn't need to happen evermore. But having that list allows me to see everything and know what it is, as opposed to just be surprised and not being able to remember everything. Other thing is kind of tracking time spent on activities. And this also came into play when we were migrating to Alma, to just see how much time I was spending on this new fun project versus what was happening in my regular day-to-day. So I use an online tool, and so every time I switch a task throughout the day, I change that. And so at the end of the week or month or year, I can, if I'm looking and trying to figure out where did my time go? Why do I feel like I haven't gotten anything done? Looking back the week and saying, well, you didn't get anything done because you spent 90% of your time in a meeting or many meetings. And then I feel a little better about the fact that the to-do list or the pile didn't get accomplished because it wasn't that I wasn't working or wasting time or daydreaming. It was because I was just spending a lot of time talking to people about doing things as opposed to actually doing them. I think to the side, so a lot of the conversations that we had about our increased responsibilities and how we've been navigating it, both successfully and sometimes a little less than successfully. We talked about the support we did and did not receive as we've kind of come through and progressed, and some of the things that we all noted that would have been helpful to us as we have kind of navigated this additional responsibility. In many of the cases where more responsibilities included supervision, time to get to know the staff, and time to get to know the people that you're supervising and the new people that were going to be part of your workflows, to gain some trust, learn their preferred communication methods, and figure out how best to work with them before just having to jump in and disrupt their day-to-day, because nobody likes change, and even if it's positive change, and nobody really likes strangers coming in to change their day. So taking the time and being given the time to get to know the people really would have been a helpful thing. For those of us who've been, like, for me, and for those of us who've been in an institution for a while, we have a lot of that institutional knowledge, but have now been provided brand new tasks, brand new responsibilities, and are now sitting in meetings that have been longstanding meetings, but we were not part of them before. So being mindful of that and kind of treating some of those things as if I was a new employee. So if my supervisor sitting and talking to me and walking me through some of those meetings and what the expectations were, along with like things like in addition to those meetings, I had a lot of HR things that I got to deal with in the first few months, which I wasn't expecting and never had to deal with before. So kind of sitting down and having conversations with me as if I had never existed in the place was incredibly helpful. And I think, and lastly, while it seems relatively silly, just acknowledgement that when you're taking on a huge project or additional tasks or new responsibility, that it is indeed hard. And it is going to take time, and it is time consuming, and it is not going to be easy. And you're not wrong for thinking that it's hard or that you're overwhelmed. And not to just put a positive spin on it. And again, kind of when we were moving to Alma, everybody was talking about how great it is and how wonderful it is. And we sometimes forgot to mention how difficult it was for everybody who was in all of the meetings and making all of the changes. And we're just like, but it's going to be great. And it will be great at some point. But in getting there, it's just going to be hard. And hearing that and confirming that can be incredibly helpful.
Thank you. So I love that you talked about building trust and also talked a little bit about how we don't need toxic positivity. I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. So I want to talk a little bit about advocating for your staff. Because of my background as a paraprofessional, advocating for staff has been really important to me. So I'm always asking, how can I effectively advocate for the people who, not just the people who report to me, but also any staff in the library. So we all are experiencing a lot of change. There's going to be a lot of change in our library too. We're going to have a big renovation. It's going to be a difficult year coming up. And I've been thinking to myself, how can I make this manageable for everyone? So change makes everyone nervous. People need to know what's going on. They need to know there will be a plan. And I know this is the ideal and not always the reality, but you need staff buy-in, or else you just won't get anything done. You'll have a low morale experience on your hands if you don't have staff buy-in. I plan on acknowledging that the next few months are going to be a challenge for our workplace. I want to tell them what the plan is. I tell them what I know, and I want to tell them that they have a say in what will happen. Also, whenever I can, I discuss how good the people are who report to me at their jobs. So having people speak up for you in rooms where you're not in is really important. And I think that's important in building trust as well. Building trust comes from being a good colleague, even to the people who you don't supervise as well. Like I said, we have a lot of change coming up, and people come to me and ask me if I know what's going on, and so I check in with those people as well. I offer information when I know it. Something that really comforted me yesterday from the plenary talk, they talked about the importance of listening, and also, again, they talked about talking about challenges and being transparent and honest. So I think it's really important when you're advocating for staff to. That was really comforting to hear. Like maybe I'm on the right track. But sometimes I think it's just as easy as offering to be a listening ear, offering to go for a walk with somebody, get a coffee and talk, and just being as the emphasis is on listening, I think.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the coping strategies and what I found helpful during the interim role. Thankfully, my supervisor had broke down the position in terms of different job duties, but still I had a bit of a learning curve. I had not worked with electronic resources management since roughly early 2021. I'd been focusing much more on cataloging and other things like that. But he did break those things down. What I had to learn was that we had a long-term staff member in the role who had just bukus of knowledge about licensing, negotiation type stuff. I didn't have that piece. I didn't have that piece because I came from a much smaller institution where our acquisitions person solely did that. So going back to the piece of it would have been really nice to have conversations and, really learn how to work with that person. That would have been excellent. However, that person was going through a very tremendous health battle, and he just was much more on his own, and he knew what he was doing, and I think he was kind of like, just focused on that to avoid thinking about the health battle that he was going through. From my team, I really had a lot of patience and understanding. I have 3 direct reports and 1 indirect report at the time, and then I also took on 2 additional direct reports. So my team basically had well over 80 years of experience by the time that I worked with them, and they knew what they were doing. I think in the past that maybe they hadn't been empowered to advocate for themselves, or that the team leader had previously thought about, or maybe had favorites, or didn't really have trust with some of the staff, but they know what they're doing. I trust them implicitly. If they have questions, I always encourage open communication, and just going through that, they had a wealth of patience and understanding with me, and then they also really did advocate for themselves to grow. So they also, the advocacy for growing. When one of my people came to me and said, hey, I really want to learn about cataloging, or I want to learn about this, or I want to learn about the other. And so this really made me think about, how could we get together as a team and learn and grow together? So we now have weekly meetings Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. to talk about workflows, to talk about cataloging, invoicing, all of those fun things. From other libraries-wide colleagues, I'm at a very big institution. I went from a very small team at my former institution. We had 4 people in the collections department, and now we have I think about 35 or 40, but we are down. So we are missing about 9 or 10 people. But what I thought, or what I would have liked to, had from them was patience and grace. And for the most part, we really did. So, we are 10, I think almost 10 people down, staff and faculty, and they understand that, things might not be completed right immediately, or that it might take a little bit of time or whatever. But there have been a few. There have been a few who are just maybe not exactly rooting for your success. And so, maybe in the past they had relationships with you where it had been wonderful and y'all were friends and this and that, the other, but not everybody is rooting for your success, which is a very hard lesson that I had to learn, and very sad because I am the person, I feel like I'm a hype woman. Like, I will root for you and I will encourage you with everything. I mean, I promise, email me. I will root for you. I will cheerlead. I'm a cheerleader. So, just having that and not having that, or having that relationship fall apart, it's like, this is terrible. So, so I thankfully had my peer mentoring colleagues to really talk through that about. And, I will say that if you don't have a system in your library, where a support system where you feel supported, feel mentored, feel encouraged, you can find them elsewhere. And that has been the biggest, best lesson about basic mentoring to me. So that is from the larger library world. Find that. Also, I did have to supervise a friendly colleague, and that was, a changing relationship. So you still have to navigate relationship dynamics. So I'm not sure that she especially loved my supervision style. I'm super laid back. I feel like maybe she needed a little bit more support and a little bit more direction and a little bit more, but I think she was okay with me. So, yeah. So I really thought about this as future trends in the library world, but really I think I needed to think about it with myself. Especially the most important lesson, please take care of yourself. Please take care of yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of those things. Make sure that you are taken care of, because to lead, you cannot lead if you are not in good working order yourself. Individually, this has helped me really refine my career goals. I want to be a cataloger forever. I mean, what I learned and what I found out is that, I have this electronic resources management experience, and I really do like working with electronic resources, but I fell in love with cataloging. And I laugh because Clemson hired an electronic resources librarian to be a serials and GovDocs cataloger. I don't think they knew what they were getting into. I sure didn't know what I was getting into. I had a moment sitting down and I was like, oh, I've got to catalog this thing. Oh, how do I do that? So, this time, this interim position time was just an experience where I thought and I reflected, and it was a time where I could be very introspective about what my career goals are. So if you are in that position and you have to take on an interim position, or if you're thinking about what you want to do with your career, seriously use this as a time of introspection or reflection, and think about where you want to go in your career. Also, understand about succession planning. I will try to say this as kindly and nicely as possible. We suck with documentation. So we have really been working on that, especially since our staff member was the person who really did a lot of licensing, a lot of negotiation. He very sadly retired and then almost immediately passed away. It was very tragic. And so we, during that process, learned that all of the information was going to his email versus a shared email. So we very quickly had to scramble and make sure that invoices were coming to our shared email account, all of those other things. So, saying all that to say, focus on shared governance of your materials. So I think that, also, I want to talk about like the sacredness of information. Like, I definitely don't believe that anything on my team's plate is sacred. Like, nothing is just a librarian only duty. Like, I want everybody on my team to know how to do whatever they want to learn. I want them, like, if you want to learn how to catalog, cool, let's sit down and learn it. If you want to learn how to invoice, cool, let's sit down and learn it. There is nothing that, says that I am quote unquote better because I'm a librarian versus them being a staff member. So I want to advocate for them to be able to learn as much as they can. So also, like, during this time, I think that it just gave me the opportunity to become an even more empathetic leader than I already was, which, the second part is like, let's learn how to work within our frameworks, and we can be creative about the certain rules and regulations or HR, whatever, that we have to deal with in order to, just have the best experience we can for our team. And then also that led to the team trainings and shared knowledge among the team. So I think that we're in a really good place.
Okay, we're going to open it up to Q&A.